Hello everyone and welcome back to the channel, and in today's video we're going to be taking a look at the newest champion that was just added to the contest, and that of course is Scream. And I will just say a quick aside, you probably know this about me, but I am a huge Venom fan, especially classic Venom stories from the late 80s and 90s. And Scream is just one of the coolest characters, one of the Life Foundation symbiotes. I have that entire Lethal Protector run with the Mark Bagley art and some of it and everything. I just absolutely love this era of Venom, and it was just so crazy to have like all these new symbiotes being introduced, the children of Venom, and Scream of course being kind of the most standout with the look and the hair and everything like that, a female symbiote. It was just absolutely crazy. So the fact that she's in Marvel Contest of Champions now is just fantastic, and I'm going to be just kind of breaking down her abilities, showing you a little bit of Act 8 gameplay, a Penny Parker boss, and then just kind of talking a little bit about her utility. I'm telling you right now that she is my most desired champion at the moment, and I am planning to do an arena grind for her, bring her to SIG 200 as a 6-star. The SIG does matter a little bit for the utility. We'll get into that a little bit later. But again, structure of the video, a little bit of gameplay, a little bit of abilities talk, and then we're going to kind of break some stuff down at the end. So I hope you enjoy this one. Let's get right into her abilities through a little bit of gameplay. Alright, so we're going to just do a couple actions at the beginning of this fight, and then I'm going to pause it and break it down for you. So through this first time looking at it, I'm just going to tell you what I'm doing, and then later I'll tell you why. So on the run-in, I am charging my heavy attack, which will lead to that auto block. Then we do medium, medium. Then we do 4 lights, and then we do medium, medium. And just for good measure, one more medium, medium. Bait out the special, and now just combo into a special 1. And basically, by doing that, we are sort of ramped up to cash out with our special 2. So let's just talk a little bit about why I did that. The heavy attack is a really sort of complicated thing to describe. I can't exactly tell you when you're supposed to use it, but what it does is it consumes a madness, and it puts an auto block buff on yourself, which means the next basic attack is going to just get automatically auto blocked. It gives you an opening, and it's going to place an armor break and a bleed on the opponents and give you one of your special buffs. So essentially, it allows you an opening, it gives you a buff, it means you don't have to do a combo, it helps you control your power. It's just sort of this like sixth sense thing that you need to know how to use, but I do often use it to start the fights. Then after that, I built the second vicious buff by doing a medium ender, and once you have 2 of any buff, it's usually a good idea to do a light ending combo to switch to the next buff. That's what happens. You cycle to the next of the 4 buffs, but you also gain 2 madness when you do that. Then I started building some of Energize, which is the second buff in the cycle. I did some medium combos, and then the important thing about throwing the special 1 is that it gives you a little bit of an attack bonus based on how many buffs you have, so you don't feel so bad wasting a bar of power before the special 2. But the big deal is it gives you these fervors. You might remember Fervor from Morbius. Essentially, it makes the bleeds that you are putting on have a higher ability accuracy so that they will hit on every single hit. And you do consume 3 madness when you do that. So the key, after getting these fervors, you can just go ham. Every single hit that you make contact with him and that connects is going to put a bleed and an armor break on. And then you want to just keep doing light ending combos until your madness gets over to 8, which is your max. And then the special 2 damage is based on how many debuffs and how much madness you have. So I do a little medium ending combo there, and we get up to about 20 of the debuffs and we get a big burst. So that's our basic loop. You know, the simplest way to think of it is special 1 into special 2, but you do want to be managing, like having a lot of madness when you throw the special 2, using those auto blocks like I just did every once in a while, making sure that you have the fervors up. And now the last thing I'm going to talk about, because we're not trying to kill this gigantic Captain America, I just kind of wanted to show you what her abilities did. A few things: when you have 2 of any buff and then you give yourself a new buff, that's how you get the Undermine. So there's a few ways to get that Undermine. We'll talk about that a little bit later. Essentially, you can have it up for the entire fight if you want. But now, after we bait the special, I want to talk about the special 3. Because she has one of those special 3s that's kind of like, you don't necessarily want to use it a lot, but what it does do, it's kind of like Absorbing Man, where like it just puts you in supercharged mode for a while. You can see that my madness is basically not being consumed by doing anything. We have all of our buffs. If we didn't have them already, then we wouldn't have to worry about that. But it just keeps you at 8 madness until you use a special. And then you can basically more easily just sort of play however you want to play without having to manage your stuff as you make your way from a special 1 into a special 2. So you can see that we're pretty easily going to get to the special 2. So my point with the special 3 is you don't often want to use it, but if you do get to it by accident, or there's something about the fight where it's hard to end combos and you want to just like not worry about combo enders, it's actually a pretty good thing to use. So now let's talk a little bit about the SIG ability. I do really rate this highly, and it's one of the reasons I want to get the 6-star is to take her to max SIG. You do get a little bit of regeneration, which is nice. It'll keep you topped off, make her a little bit more tanky. But the big one is that last bullet point. She has like the gladiator thing where the ability accuracy of armors is it can at SIG 200, when that's at 25%, it means you start the fight with 4 madness. 25 times 4 equals 100. It means Red Skull, Doom, all of those tech champions that have armor, they're just going to start the fight without the armor. And that throughout the fight, you're going to be able to really control the amount of armor that they're getting to be basically 0. That has massive utility against the tech class, but it is locked behind her SIG ability. The other things are nice to have. It gives her a little boost against symbiotes, and she gets like the Spider-Verse evade thing. I love that. Her dad, Venom, had that, so it's kind of nice that he passed the trait down, but you do need the SIG ability for that. So it is a very good SIG ability. And the other utility that she has, obviously bleed and armor break debuffs, very easy to hit despair and inequity. We'll see a little bit of that when we're doing the lane, how tanky she is. And then the other thing is when she has over 6 madness, then she basically can't be stunned. So stuff like encroaching stun or any kind of like node that's going to put stuns on you, you can actually completely bypass that. So next up, we're going to look at an Act 8 lane, and I'll give you a little description of what the node is in just a second. Right, so this is actually the one from Cat VQ. Essentially, every 10 hits, there's going to be a falter landing on us, and we need to build buffs ourselves so that we can get a vigilance buff. So yeah, I will just say before we get started here, take this with a grain of salt because this is one of those lanes that is really boosting cosmics. You'll see that when we bypass the miss, we're going to be getting a little bit of passive fury. So the damage in this fight is going to definitely be higher, but I just kind of wanted you to see just a little bit of what her gameplay loop looks like for these like Act 8 style fights on a lane that's meant for cosmics. A little bit later on, we're going to actually be seeing some fights where she has some really specific utility against them. But essentially we've been, trying not too hard to be like super duper crazy about our loop. But you can see that on a lane that is making a cosmic a little bit better, she's just absolutely annihilating this war machine. So that was a good warm-up fight. She's going to end up doing this lane in about 6.5 minutes. So I want to show you next Iceman. We are going to take a little bit of damage here, but the utility that she has against Iceman, of course, is that she does have the armor breaks, which is nice for him on occasion. And the other big thing about this fight is you might be like, wait a minute, he's bleed immune. That's not great. But we are going to see what happens. Basically, when they are bleed immune, what ends up happening is instead of a bleed and an armor break, you get 2 armor breaks. And these things will stack quite high. You're going to see by the end of this like how much armor we're actually removing here. So you still get the same inequity and despair type ability. But you will actually be armor breaking them even more, which of course leads to damage. Armor break can essentially act like a fury if you have enough about them and you can just remove enough armor. It's just going to be doing a ton of damage. So I'm realizing that, we do again have that really big attack boost, but anything that interacts with the bleed, like the fervors and stuff like that, that's going to interact with our armor breaks. And you can just see the damage is like absolutely devastating here. I wanted to see how many I could get on him, and you can see how big those crits were with the Furies and the armor breaks. Pretty amazing. We only took a little bit of cold snap damage. So next up we have Yondu. Again, kind of the same formula. I've been kind of experimenting a little bit with the auto block on this lane. I'm still not fully proficient on her, but you're going to see in this fight I actually do use the auto block a few times. So starting off the fight, I charge it. I actually landed the heavy, but then we get the auto block. Now we're going to change to the next one. I wanted to get to the energize. Right there, we didn't have enough buffs, so we got faltered. No big deal. Still kind of ramping up. We get an energize now. And then we're going to probably throw our special 1. Throw the special 1. There we go. We get our fervors up. And you'll notice that even though I took a little bit of chip damage from that Iceman, these tiny bit of regens, they do add up. Anytime we consume madness, we're going to be getting one. So that means when we do our little auto block trick or when we throw our specials, it's going to be giving us a little bit of regen, which does kind of top us off a little bit. And we like to see that. And now I'm just wondering if I throw the special 2, if it's going to kill him. And it absolutely does. So that would, again, massive damage on those bursts. They are being augmented by the Furies. But here we go. This is the next 3 fights actually all have a little piece of utility that I want to share. So I'm going to do the trick where we charge the heavy right at the beginning of this Killmonger fight and watch what happens when we do that. Boom, he gets an automatic opening and he's automatically armor broken right away. And we're going to be able to keep his armor off for the entire time. So he's obviously not a tech champion where we have like our SIG ability doing the armor related thing that we were talking about earlier, but we do have just regular old armor break, and against Killmonger, that's really the best way to shut him down. And we're going to be able to keep it up for the entire fight. You'll just see right here. So we're just baiting some specials. And, you know, because of inequity, all these little blocked hits and stuff are barely doing anything. And, you know, again, our damage is nuts. So we just totally wrecked him right there. So that's Killmonger. Really good Killmonger counter. That's another piece of utility right there. Next up, we've got Punisher, right? So this guy's got really annoying specials that hit into your block. So we're going to kind of just see inequity doing its thing here. And let's see, I'm just trying to show you some different ways that she can be used here. So we start off with the auto block. We get our 2 vicious. Now we're going to cycle over to energize. And we do a combo to get the energize. We got plenty of buffs going now. And look, that barely did any block damage, right? Because we had the inequity maxed out. The other thing that she has in her kit that I do try to get up a little bit later in this fight is the bulwark, actually. She has a bulwark buff. And I think I kind of missed the opportunity to get it up, but yeah, right there, that was a mistake. But even with getting hit by that, inequity really kind of saved us there. I will say the bulwark buff does add a lot of block damage. You'll see that in the Penny Parker fight a little bit later. Your block damage negation. So you know, all of the buffs unto themselves are very, very strong. And I guess we didn't really talk about those. So as it goes into the last fight, you know, you have access to these 2 very strong vicious buffs, which is going to make your bleeds hit harder. Then you have access to 2 energize that are going to give you 40% extra combat power rate. That's like way more than Silver Surfer, I feel like, or Red Goblin when you only have the 1. I think Red Goblin with only 1 energize is like 25%. So 40% is really, really noticeable. Before we get too far into this, you can see the same thing with Killmonger. Like, we've got these armor breaks up the entire time. Really, really nice. And then after that, you do have Bulwark, which is a boring buff, but Bulwark does really, really help against blocking stuff. And when you have like Inequity plus Bulwark, you can really use that to your advantage to just mitigate block damage on those fights that have a lot of it. And then the last buff is called Impact, and I barely ever am going to use that one because it's mostly a defensive one. It's block penetration. So I guess if you're on a lane that has something like, you know, that lane where you do all the damage through block, it might be a little interesting to experiment with it. But you can see here, this is a rank 2 Scream, and we just blitzed through an Act 8 lane, given it was meant for Cosmics, in 6.5 minutes. That's pretty darn fast. The last thing that we're going to see today is a Penny Parker boss. This is Act 8.2, so decent amount of health, especially for a rank 2 champion. She's not rank 3. And I'm kind of learning on the fly in this fight. Again, I've only had her for a couple days, but my goal is to showcase the Undermine, which is really good cosmic utility, and also, again, Inequity, able to take a bunch of blocked hits. So I'm going to kind of narrate what I was thinking here. This also has Mighty Charge, which is going to be a little rough for us. So we start with medium, and you can see our Mighty Charge already got rid of our buffs and everything. And we do need to have buffs in this fight. That's one of the ways that our damage will be capped if we don't do that. So right now we have the Undermine, and the ways to keep the Undermine up are to either do medium enders or do our heavy attack. And I'm kind of learning this on the fly, so there are chances that I will lose the Undermine at times. But there we go. Even with the 4 debuffs, that doesn't do that much damage into our block. I love to see that. So right here, we lose our Undermine, so I'm at a little bit of a risk of an auto block, and we do get the auto block, so that was my bad right there. We're not Power Drain immune, we're not unblockable or anything like that yet. So again, just kind of feeling out the fight. Like, I'm still feeling really safe, but you know, we haven't really done any big damage. My hope is that later in this fight we can hook something up where I play around Mighty Charge and get a lot of the debuffs on her when I throw a special 2. So that would be ideal. Now, I decide to go to the special 3. This is what I was talking about before. It's like, this fight is complicated enough for me. I want to be able to try to like not have to worry about consuming madness and things like that, and just sort of like be able to go ham. So we have Undermine up. It's nice to know that like if I threw my special attacks, I'm not going to be consuming madness, so I should have plenty of stuff to play with to keep the Undermine up. All right, so right there, we finally got rid of the shield, and we're going to have to bait another special, and we're good until I throw a special 1. We're not going to be consuming any madness on it because of the way the special 3 works. So here we go, we get our 3 fervors up, and we still have 8 madness. That's really nice. That's the benefit of the special 3. And I know that the shield is coming back on, so now the goal is to get up to a special 2 without her losing these debuffs from Mighty Charge. So we want her to just keep throwing specials, not dash at us. And I also am doing medium enders so that we can keep up the Undermine, and then we get a really, really nice special 2. So now, if I had been trying to build to that a little bit earlier, this fight would be over already. Again, trying to learn on the fly here, but you can see that we have really good utility against her with the Undermine. We were able to keep the debuffs up even with Mighty Charge. That was a little bit of our own skill. We got to see a little bit of the special 3 rotation, and now she's almost gone. We almost got her. We're just going to do a couple more combos and she's going to be gone. So I'll take this as a net win, considering I've only been playing with her for a day or two. We did a whole Act 8 lane and a boss with no items, just kind of like not even thinking too hard. I really like that about her. The special 1 into special 2, even if you're not being min-maxing all your currencies, is quite good. I'll tell you where she lands in the contest for me, and it's kind of going to be a weird analogy, but she reminds me of Spider-Punk. And I know they're different classes, but the reason I really like Spider-Punk was like, I knew that Celestial Battlegrounds players were probably not going to be subbing out, you know, Titania and Silk and stuff like that for Spider-Punk in their runs. And there's just better Cosmic Champions overall that are more powerful and can do more things and do some more flashy things. But there's something about her where she's a really interesting parallel swap for a lot of the utility that you want in the Cosmic class. She can do a lot of those things that you want them to do, and she's just fun as heck. And she also has a Sig ability that you really want at high Sig in order to get the maximum amount of utility and actually use her in this situation. So just like I did a featured grind for Spider-Punk, I ascended him right away, took him to Sig 200. I'm planning to do the same with Scream for those same reasons. I think an Ascended Scream at Sig 200 is going to be super fun. She's not in this current Titan or the next one, so it's going to be like at least 3 or so months before people are getting her a little bit more often. And that's kind of my my analysis on her. So let me know what you think. Hopefully this video was somewhat enlightening. I really like this character. She's mostly just for the fun, for the damage, for a little bit of utility, the animations, but I'm definitely going to be going for her, trying to get her on the account this week. And that'll do it for today. Thanks for checking out this video, and I'll catch you in the next one.